what are you doing there?
Hey.
Hey, what is going on, everybody? Hey, wait, that wasn't supposed to happen. Okay, there we go. What's going on?
Nothing. Working.
You're just
Waiting
standing
for
around
the weekend so that
working.
I can work more.
Yes. By the way, if you've not been here before, my name's Darren. This is Victor over here. And we're the co-host of a podcast called DevOps Paradox. And not surprisingly, this is the DevOps Paradox YouTube channel, which the podcast is edited and usually safe for work. This, who knows what's going to happen. This is not edited.
I know that I don't know what's going to happen. You might. I have no idea.
Speaking of people not knowing what's going to happen, we'll talk more about other things later. But this is actually a good place to start. I don't know if you saw this week. Sort of a Kubernetes Lego, which is true, except the statement right here is like this, but the bricks are on fire.
I love it.
It's a true statement, right? We've talked about this in the past a lot. In fact, on our upcoming episode next Wednesday with a repeat guest, Adam Sandor, we talk more about this concept of Kubernetes is great. You can do lots of things with it, but that's also the worst thing about Kubernetes is you can do lots of things with it. We need something a little more black box, if you will. So
yeah, less variety of pieces, maybe.
Yeah, a few.
It's good that you can assemble things. I think that that's
absolutely.
a good idea. Just maybe, if there is like puzzle, right? I like occasionally to do the puzzle, but not those of 100,000 pieces. They're just too much for me.
And your other phrase there, occasionally like to do it, not every day. So
nope.
That's that. One of the other items from last week, we talked about Infra App last week. It was created by the guys that did Docker Desktop. They now have a Windows version available for Infra App. So that is good if you have Windows. Did you ever get a Windows machine? Like a real Windows machine?
No, I didn't. I'm still using VM or Azure.
Okay.
And now it changed. I changed my opinion on two subjects. First, that Windows is actually quite okay.
Well, Windows 10 is quite okay.
Yeah, I don't know what
with the latest patch.
Before. Last one I knew was Windows XP, so I don't know whether there was anything in between. And the second thing that I learned is that it's okay only because there is WSL and I don't actually need to work directly on Windows.
Right. So you're able with, I don't remember exactly when that came in, but the latest Windows 10 version is 2004. You can't say 2004 because that confuses things. So you say 2004. If you're using Windows and you're at that version, I was listening to some other podcast this week and they were talking about WSL. In fact, it's one of he's actually got a book on LeanPub, Paul Thurrott, and it was about it's Windows Survival Guide or something. I'll have to look it up later, but he was talking more about it. So that was number 2, quick item. Did you have something else to say there?
Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah.
The reason why I was saying what I'm saying is that if I would be using Windows, I mean, I use it, but occasionally, I would be installing Windows apps like, I don't know, Microsoft Word, Visual Studio, and things like that.
Right.
But developer tools, there is no reason for that release. Just apt-get install.
Right. And you're done. That's great, right? So one other quick item real quick, and then we'll get into the real news of the week. One of the guys we work with posted this, and I thought it was pretty interesting. And there's a link for this that'll be down in the description of the episode. I still didn't get the notes up from last week. I got a better plan, so right after we're done today, then all the notes will go right in. But this was an interesting blog post that talks about, here's a good combination of Ingress Nginx, Cert Manager, and maybe external DNS, which I haven't worked with. That seems like a pretty good stack of things, right?
Yeah.
Then Helm, of course, right? And then Reckoner, which I'd never even heard of. So this is, again, we'll put a link to this down in the description right afterwards. It had some good stuff I hadn't seen before. So it's always good to have knowledge of new tools, right?
Yes.
And then you make a decision, do I want to use it or not? Or then it's like, I don't want to use it right now, but it looks interesting. Let me put it in the middle shelf so I still see it every day.
And even if you're not going to use them, then at least when you find a tool that you do want to use, you know why you want to use it. Because you went through the tools that you don't want to use.
Right. Speaking of tools that you don't want to use, the first real item for today, introducing Amazon Honeycode, building web and mobile apps without writing code. I've heard this story before. Now,
I'm skeptical. I haven't tried it.
So, exactly. But basically, it's beta. Effectively fully managed no-code applications. My phrasing for it, when I was talking to Victor beforehand, this is like Google Forms on steroids. And we're talking about building all the serverless stuff. In fact, we didn't mention that. That was the very first item that I should have mentioned. A new version of the catalog book was just published about 40 minutes ago, I think. Udemy is still processing, so that will be up later in a few hours type stuff, however long it takes Udemy to do the Udemy things. But should we even consider doing no-code solutions in catalog?
Maybe depends on the votes.
The votes.
You're not in control anymore.
Votes? You mean votes like you go fill out the survey?
Exactly.
Okay.
So right now, once we're finished with serverless, whatever that will be, the next one, according to that, is going to be service mesh. So if you don't want service mesh, if you want something else, go there and then
go upvote.
Outvote others.
Yep. Do we public? Can people see the thing? I don't even remember the results.
They cannot.
We gotta figure out a way.
They cannot, but I think that there is an option
to show that.
Yes,
I think
if I remember. Yes.
Okay, but anyway, back to whatever this is called, Honeycode. They have a bunch of sort of pre-existing things you can do. To do customer tracker, survey, again, Google Form on steroids, inventory management. This sounds eerily like Access, or what was the big one on Mac years ago for doing like
the one that I opened and closed forever.
Yeah, that one. So this feels more like Microsoft Access than it does anything else. But hey, if it works, might be worth it, right? I mean, it's something to look at. If you're just needing to do some sort of real data collection or data entry, it could be interesting.
But here's a real question, kind of. Is this a product that Amazon is building because they think it's useful for others? Or that's a product that they found useful for them and they're trying to sell to others?
So based on the reason why I found out about this is I saw a retweet from somebody that actually got acqui-hired into AWS. So this was the product they had and they built it out inside of AWS. Now, whether that answers your question or not, I don't think it does. But the more interesting thing is, what is the long play here? What's the why behind this? I mean, it's cool and all, but do I need it? I don't know. Okay, I have an example of this. Like I was prototyping some stuff for my wife, and I suck at UI, and she wants a good UI. Whereas this would give me that quick and dirty, nice UI. It may not be the greatest UI, but at least it's a nice UI. There's value in that from a prototyping perspective, and even potentially a real app. So
maybe
I don't know.
But what made AWS amazing is because they offer the service to others of what they were using internally before AWS existed.
Right.
Kind of like it was a real deal. That's why it was
Yeah.
so awesome when it appeared. Kind of like, guys, this is how we do our infrastructure. Would you like to do it that way? And I cannot imagine AWS folks actually this being their tool.
Well, no, I agree. However, if this would have been Google that would have launched this, like for real, productized it like this, you could already start setting the time you're going to write the death certificate for it, right? Because it's, at least with AWS, you know products don't, up to this point, have not died.
Yes, yes. The death rate is much lower.
Yes. I think non-existent right now. So this is interesting.
Yes.
And then it works for mobile too. So if you're needing an app that does both, it'd be interesting. So I'm hoping to. By the way, I'm taking some time off next week. Oh, by the way, we should have talked about this too. I'll talk out in front of everybody. We need to record some episodes next week. Since
We
I'm
will
taking some
record
time off.
episodes next week.
So good. All right. Little
That's
fourth,
settled.
a little fourth wall stuff. So it's that's what it is today. So Honeycode looks interesting. Whether it's useful for enterprises, I doubt that it will be, but who knows? It's got to be better than an Excel spreadsheet or an Access database, right?
So what I imagine could be very useful, you know that enterprises have a bunch of departments that really need certain tools that are not really off the shelf. And then they bother IT department for 3 years to build it for them. And so it can help actually, not necessarily for companies to use that to release their product to the masses, but kind of for internal usage. I don't know, HR, for example. I don't know, maybe they can assemble something and and there you go, right?
Yeah.
Why not?
And you're not having to host it internally. So it's, I think there's a great value for those kinds of applications that we usually just say, all those are garbage or some other phrasing. You have to be able to enter your time card somehow or another.
So it's kind of for people who want to build a product for their own use.
Yeah, I think
not necessarily a product to build product that will be sold to others.
I mean, it might work. Again, it's in beta right now, so who knows how far it's going to go. But for internal use, I would definitely use it. It's a whole lot better. Okay, item number 2. Boy, I went out of focus. Frigate. And this is a documentation generation tool for Helm Charts. Now, I spent a few days this week digging through Helm Charts. I can read template languages all day long. I don't want to. So this is pretty interesting. It's just it's a little Python app. And then you basically give it the chart, and then it generates a README.
Yes.
Nothing huge. Now, I don't know if this is, there we go. I don't know if that's even going to show pretty good or not. So basically, here's the chart, and then here's the README. It's nothing huge, right? I mean, it's not huge, but it could be useful. If you're not generating any documentation at all for your charts, and you're making people go into your chart to figure out how it's supposed to work, document your chart internally and then generate this off the top of it. It feels like a Java doc, right? It feels like you're generating Java docs.
But that's kind of my problem. I was actually thinking of, before you said Java doc, I was thinking of Java docs. Then I was thinking, have I ever seen Java docs that I wanted to spend more than 2 minutes with?
No.
Kind of, I think it's a great idea. I mean, great idea. It's not a new idea, right? There is something in it, but I'm yet to find documentation that I consider useful.
Yeah.
That is generated purely from comments and, like arguments of source code.
Yeah, and since Frigate's using Jinja, which is a templating engine within Python, then, hey, you can do what you want with it. So
Yeah.
it's something to consider. If you don't have a way to document your charts today, again, this is a tool. See if it works for you. If it does, great. If it doesn't, great. Your choice, right?
The beauty of those tools is that this type of tools, you probably don't need more than half an hour to kind of make a decision. Kind of half an hour of playing, and
Yeah.
you say, this is good for me, this is not good for me. It's not kind of a month of
Yeah.
learning.
No. And that's what I'm saying is if it's time for you to go over to the vending machine, grab a bag of chips, get a soda, and you play for 15, 20, 30 minutes, it's like, at least you can tell quick enough. Okay, third item. I saw this morning. JFrog has now launched hit the wrong one. JFrog has launched a Helm chart repository. So, sure, why not?
Very welcome. I'm very much in favor of something like that.
Now, why do you say that?
I think it's kind of it's almost ridiculous to say, okay, so I need a repository for Helm charts, and I need a repository for binaries, and then I need a repository for my container images, right?
Yeah.
It's a bit overwhelming without clear advantage, kind of like, why would I want, for 3 types of binaries, in a way, why would I want 3 or 5 or 10 different repositories? They're really not, I don't need much from repositories. I just need a way to push and pull something.
Yeah.
And having a single repository for everything makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. So if you look at it here, just looking at the couple of pieces that jumped out at me as I was scrolling by, is of course immutable versioned. Okay, that's table stakes, right? That's not surprising. Usage data. So if it's a subchart, okay, that's useful, right? That's good information you may not know about. Dependencies identified, again, good information. But then this last one is interesting. They're using X-ray under the hood, JFrog's X-ray, to look for vulnerabilities. Now, do you want that on your public chart or not?
Well, but I keep it private chart.
If you keep, whatever. Well, I think this is, looking at this is a public service. So like, let's say we created a chart for something in the labs, thinking of another course, then all of that would be here.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's an idea. There's more more information around it here, so I'll pull it up.
And the business for this type of tools is getting very, very complicated.
Yes.
Because I think that those types of tools are becoming commodity. I mean, or they already are, right? So it is very hard, probably. So if you're in public cloud, it's very hard to convince me not to use whatever Google or Amazon or Azure is already offering.
Right.
So they need to always be kind of like on the edge, something new, exciting, whatever that is.
Yeah. So if you wanted to do private, you could use container registry. But let's look at this one because we were talking about Nginx earlier today. So let's look at, says here's the normal README. So I don't know if they slurped this in from stable or not, but let's just take a quick look at this. So there's some information. That's great. It's used by, no imports. Let's spun back down a little bit. Dependencies. It's dependent on these two. Okay, that's fine. Do we dare look at security? Sure, why not? There's all the CVEs that are associated with this current version. And they were all mediums.
There are no highs.
No highs. So that's okay, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can rest assured that JFrog picked a chart that is not horrible, is not amazing either, kind of like something in the middle to demonstrate the value.
Okay, so let's say that. So that's sort of like the gold standard, but I'm going to go ahead and look at, let's look at Bitnami because they're a big name, if you will.
Yeah.
Right? And we'll just sort of see what their Postgres image looks like. And I'm going to skip all the other stuff. Oh, look, there are no security vulnerabilities found. Okay.
You know why? Because it's Bitnami. They do amazing stuff.
That's true. So
find Oracle. Search for Oracle.
Okay, I'll do that. I'm fine with that. I don't care. Let's see. We're doing this live anyway. Actually, let's do... Man, my microphone keeps falling. Here, let me fix that real quick. I added a new... Okay, there we go. I added a new... Let's do OpenJDK. A new pop filter because my P's pop too much. No results found for OpenJDK. Let's look for Java. Oh, there's probably no Helm chart for that.
Okay, go with the first one.
Which one? Java?
No, IBM charts.
Oh, IBM charts. Okay. So I'm wondering if they're slurping that in from JVM enhancements, blah, 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 in Liberty, and there's no security issues there. Okay, let's go. All right. Again, I'm sort of... Let's look at Rancher. Let's go with Rancher.
They're probably good.
Yeah, they're clean too. Come on, I wanted to see something that was... And see, these are all
something
featured.
Dirty.
Yeah, these are all featured. There's Linker D. Well, we'll look at Linker D. And this will be the last one. And it's clean too. But it's got the dependencies. And all right, here, we can look at different versions. Let's go back a few versions, like a lot of versions. And there was one medium way back when. So if you're publishing charts and you're wanting a free way to check for CVEs, whether you want it or not, this is a way to do it. It's your choice.
Very cool.
Yeah. So, oh, then Moz brought this up. Harbor by VMware provides that for all the microservice binaries.
Yeah.
I forgot about it. Yeah.
I mean, you need to... You always need to expand, you know. You have a killer product and then you start expanding to all other products until you eventually fail and then the circle repeats.
So like, never mind. I was going to say honeycode, but that doesn't make sense either. Okay, so that's, whoops, when did that fall over? Oh, I know why. Those were the three big news items that I saw. I mean, there's a lot more news this week, but those were the big ones that I saw. What's interesting, sort of the weaving of this is Helm. There was a new version of Helm that came out this week or end of last week that some people had some issues with, that broke some charts, or people weren't doing the right thing. What can people do to help mitigate breaking changes for something like Helm?
I mean, test like everything.
But how do you keep up with that? Helm releases, they don't release betas. I don't think.
Yeah, but so I don't think that anybody should be writing tests, Helm related tests, right?
That's what I'm trying to get to.
Exactly. I mean, you're testing your application that is, I don't know, written in Java or Python or whatever. It is packaged in a container. It is deployed through Helm, all those things. But you're not testing each of those things separately, right? You're either testing your code or you're testing functionally your application. And if there is a problem in Helm and that problem was not detected in tests, that means that it's not really an issue, or you're not testing well. It's one of the two.
So,
now,
expecting
that any third-party provider will never produce a bug, any issue, is just unrealistic.
Yeah. So, what's the next step from Helm? What's going to replace Helm?
I don't think anything will replace Helm anytime soon. Simply because there is so much vested interest in Helm right now that I think it's more. Of course, you can improve Helm. You can improve anything, but realistically, there are other areas that are better investments, right?
What do you think? What's one of those, do you think?
I mean, I think that service mesh is still a mess in a way.
Okay. And why do you say
running?
why do you say service mesh is still a mess? So that 5 times fast.
Yeah, because it's still very complex. It's very complicated. It's very hard to reason with it, to debug it.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of it does great stuff, but it's too much of it maybe.
Well, that takes us back to the Lego picture that we sort of started with.
Exactly.
Right. It's got too many knobs and switches.
Exactly. And then there are other kind of like monitoring is more or less in the domain of Prometheus. But on the other hand, Prometheus does not scale, so we have a problem over there. We don't really know how to do more than one cluster, unless we're talking about multiple clusters in isolation. We still don't know what will be the layer on top of Kubernetes that will simplify Kubernetes itself, what we spoke before. And there are areas that are much more interesting. Especially if you're talking about something that is done by an effort from one or more companies, right? So if I exclude, now there are of course small tools done by one person that becomes 3 person over time. But if you're talking about where software vendors are going to invest, I don't see a value in making better Helm. Not that you cannot make it and that you shouldn't, but
not
it's
yet.
more or less commodity. Yeah.
Yeah, not yet. Because at some point, something's going to pivot, and then it's going to say, "Oh, this will solve that problem."
Yes.
But we're not there yet. So you do have a hard stop at the top of the hour. We'll stop a few minutes before that, just in case people have any reason. So we will be stopping about 5 minutes before the hour, if not a little bit before. If you got questions, go and put them over in the chat. That's over there. Unless you're on mobile, then it's down there. But it will not be over there. Oh, wait, it won't be over there. Yeah, I was just double checking the Helm stuff, and the reason why the patch came out for 3.2 was a security vulnerability. So, but
those are unexpected things, right? Somebody discovers something. I mean, you might be restless and then do silly things and obvious. But
yeah, both Helm 2 and 3 got updated. When's Helm 2 going to die?
It's going away slowly. Just that.
Is it because people they've already gone that direction and they don't want to make the change?
So I believe that companies or teams that were using Helm in a normal way probably already switched to Helm 3 because it's relatively straightforward. The thing that holds back a lot of companies is actually that for companies that integrate Helm into their processes, their tool set and stuff like that, is that it was so horribly bad that many did a lot of workarounds and patches and stuff like that, and now it's very complicated to get away from what you did on top of Helm rather than switching. If you use pure Helm 2, switching to Helm 3, that's relatively straightforward breeze, no problem at all.
Okay. Got a question. Sorry, I had to turn off my phone there for a second. Do that. Get back to there. Okay, good. All right. So we got a question for Varun. I'm going to read this out so I can process it. How can SREs or DevOps add unique value and prove to stakeholders that their infrastructure is built using best security, operations, reliability, performance, efficiency, and best practices?
Data. I mean, this applies to almost anything, right?
Yeah. But my problem with the question is based on data today. Because come Monday, when the new GA version comes out that fixes X, Y, and Z, that changes it. So it's not just data, but I'll be like a cool kid right now. It's the streaming data. The data has to change all the time.
Yeah. So you are always having some objectives. You fulfill those objectives, and then you move to the next objectives.
Yeah.
And as long as those objectives are actually tangible and measurable, then you have no problem. I don't see it anyhow related with DevOps SREs and stuff like that. It's you need to have a tangible benefit from doing something.
Yeah.
That's something that I actually had a really hard time learning, because most of my career I was like, one of those guys that, kind of like, this is better, we should do this. Why it's better? Because it's better. But why? Why would I do that? Because how can you not do it? But those are not really arguments.
It was in a book. I read it in a blog post.
Exactly.
It's not data. And asking if there's any industry standards, I'm not aware of any, because here's the problem, I think. Everybody believes that they're special. I work with clients across the board, and I'll call out one of the industries specifically. I won't say who, but industry specific around healthcare. I go into, and I've worked with people that are the same, doing the same role. One answer from one client says, oh yeah, that's no problem, we can do that. I go to the second one, it's like, that's not even possible, that's against regulations, fill in the blank. This is all within the United States. So they're under, in theory, the same regulations. Neither of these people were in California. California has other regulations. So even if you had a standard, let's use PCI because I come from that background. That PCI from the original days, and I haven't been working with it in the past couple years, but PCI in the original days, it was just painful to get through the audits. But then once you got through it, it was pretty slow moving. Because how many different ways can you secure bank transactions? You don't store the card. You don't store a hash of the card. You use an identifier, and then the card actual information is somewhere else behind a different set of four walls. That's how you got around PCI audits. Correctly, if you will. Not necessarily get around them, but that's how you made the auditors happy. I don't know how you would do that in an SRE environment.
But you shouldn't, because if you're trying to, if your goal is to do something relatively new, right, using new processes, new tools, whatever, and you're going to measure that something using some standards that were created before the dawn of time, which is basically most of them, then you're definitely going to have a conflict, because you're most likely, if you use, so either you go back in time and use something like PCI, and most likely the best way to comply with PCI like standards is actually not to do anything new.
Right.
Just do the stuff that people were doing when they were trying to comply with it, right?
Yeah.
We are talking about SREs is kind of breaking barriers. It's kind of doing something that was very uncommon. I will not say non-existent, but uncommon until recently. And you cannot fit that into some old standard. Simply, there are no standards for that type of work.
Okay, so let's suspend disbelief for a moment. If there were standards, what should some of the standards be?
I don't think there should be any standards.
No? Nothing?
I mean, it's about... It's going back to what I said before. It's about tangible objectives. What are you trying to accomplish? A, what is the current state? B, kind of how is A different than B? How is it better, right? Doesn't matter the standard. It's not about standards, really. It's about improving something. It's about bringing additional value to your users, making something more secure, making something more reliable, making something, right?
Yeah. Well, but you said, so one of the standards, though, even though you say there should be no standards, you just said more secure. So therefore, the standard should be none of your applications, the instances themselves, should be publicly exposed.
Yes.
An endpoint through a web application framework or web application firewall, WAF, whatever you want to call it, right? Things are getting filtered in real time, right? Those kinds of things are reasonable standards.
Yes.
But but beyond that, it's but those things are 20 years old. That's nothing new.
And really, nobody really. I mean, everybody follows those standards mostly so that they can put the check some box
Yeah.
somewhere. The point is that your company, everybody's company, has certain standards. You cannot have open a firewall. You cannot whitelist things without XYZ, right? There are some rules absolutely everywhere, unless your company started yesterday, right? Now the question is only: are you trying to comply with existing rules, or are you trying to create new rules? But in either case, it's not about PCI. It's about, okay, so actually we think that we can accomplish the objective behind having a firewall without having a firewall, and we're going to be equally whatever, right?
Right. So at least a foundational security. Well, but that problem's been solved.
But you already have security controls in place in your company, right?
You should.
Most likely.
Yeah, you should.
Right? So what are you trying to do? To accomplish the same controls in a different way? To relax those controls? To strengthen it?
Yeah. It's there. And he said it looked into the architect framework, but it's specific to AWS. Yes. But again, that's specific to how AWS thinks things run best in their environment.
Exactly.
That's an opinion. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. There may be some good items to pick out of there, but if you're on-prem, look at the AWS side and then figure out what pieces make sense and try to translate it over. Maybe.
And half of that thingy you had on the screen,
sorry.
Half of that is part of that is that somebody thought about how to build something in AWS in advance and they implemented stuff. But this is big part of that framework is actually with what we have right now in AWS.
Right.
How do we use it in the best way?
Right.
It's not really this is the best way to do XYZ. No, this is the bucket of stuff. This is the Lego we have, right?
Yep.
Lego pieces. Now, the best way to assemble our Lego pieces is like this.
Yeah.
Right? It's working with what you already have. And that will not apply to any other pieces. If you do, I don't know, whatever is other type of similar to Lego, it will not fit into that.
Right. Then Moz followed up here. 2 schools for service mesh. One is Istio. And then Mesh.
Mesh, yes.
Mesh, okay.
Mesh is nice and promising, and I actually like it. But it's so important. I think that we are not in such an early stage with service mesh anymore. And it will require a huge investment from your side unless you're a tiny company, right? And since this is already more or less established segment of the industry, I wouldn't go with something like mesh, which has a strong chance of never succeeding to gain traction. So it's not about quality necessarily only and the ideas.
Yeah.
Most likely, Istio is going to dominate the market. If anybody is challenging Istio, that is Linkerd.
Mm-hmm.
New ideas will come, but not based on the same thing. So, next wave is try to solve a different problem, and it will not be called service mesh. Service mesh, that's Istio and Linkerd.
Right. It looks interesting, but
it's cool, and they do cool stuff. The limited experience I have with them is, I think it's good, and it's much simpler and all those things. But likely it's going to fail.
That's whatever. So, and Varun, you're welcome. Hopefully we answered without too. We tend to walk around those subjects because it depends. That's the consulting answer, right? Is based on the data, it depends.
Yeah.
So you brought up Linkerd again, which is still your favorite, right? If you
Yeah.
have, if it's still your favorite, but you're saying Linkerd is going to not win.
No, it's gonna be Istio.
Yeah.
It's always a combination of at least two things.
Yep.
One is what solves a problem better, product A or product B, right? And if that would be only criteria, then we could argue and we could put mesh in that picture, and then the console as well, and quite a few other things. But then you need to combine that with the gravity that each of those products have, right?
Yep.
So it cannot be any one of those in isolation. I'm not going to choose just something that is most widely used by everybody, right? So
Right.
it needs to be a combination of the two. But you cannot ignore one in favor of the other, unless it is something not that important. Mesh is very important, and you can expect. So, for example, you're going to see, and we're already seeing that mesh is part of cloud offering for managed Kubernetes, right? Which mesh is going to be? Istio, right? Google is definitely going for Istio. Azure, Microsoft is also most likely going for Istio. AWS never goes for anything that is not there, so I'm going to exclude them from the story, right? So it will be everywhere, and then you will be fighting against the current. To me, here is actually a good example of what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
I can argue that Consul is a better key value store than etcd.
Okay.
Right? Now, does that mean, is it sufficiently better for you to rip apart etcd that comes with literally every Kubernetes and put Consul?
No.
And the answer is probably no.
No. Actually, the answer is heck no.
Exactly. You might have some special requirement, something. So it's not that it's no for absolutely no for absolutely everybody, but for vast majority, etcd is sufficiently good. It's already there. Let's focus on something else. And I think that we're getting close to that point with service mesh. And there will be something will replace service mesh, but that will not be mesh or whatever it's pronounced. It will be something conceptually really different.
Do you think that's going to be the time when that new layer over top of Kubernetes comes in? Is that when that raises its head?
I think that service mesh, actually, if I'm right in my guesses, nothing will really replace service mesh, or to be more precise, something will replace service mesh, but you will likely not know what that something is because it's going so much down the stack.
Right.
That it's going to become irrelevant. The same what I was commenting the other day about efforts like Cloud Runner from Google for Knative, right? That has we're still too early to make any bets on that. But something like that will mean that we are moving up the stack as users, and things below doesn't matter.
Which, by the way, if you haven't filled out, if you haven't filled out the survey yet, go fill out the survey since we just talked about Cloud Run again. Now, as those things start happening, as we start moving towards the Cloud Run, I'll say it, the Heroku way of doing things.
Yes.
Right? What does that mean to us as people that do development for these things? It makes our life easier, number one, right? From an operational perspective.
It's never getting easier.
No.
I don't think that anything is ever getting easier. Just that when something gets easier, then the boundaries of what what we're trying to accomplish changes, right?
Yeah.
Like virtual machines arguably made things easier.
Yes.
Only if what we would try to accomplish with virtual machines is exactly the same as what we were trying to accomplish before virtual machines. But then we got some ideas. Now there are virtual machines. Now we can shut them down, turn them on. So the complexity increases always because the boundary changes.
Outside of the bottle, it looks like it's gotten simpler. Inside the bottle, it's gotten very, very complex.
Yes.
In fact, let's sort of let that be the last thing we're going to talk about, but don't drop off just yet. Just one more thing. This is not WWDC. Can you believe they're dropping Intel? I mean, I can because they've been building chips for so long, but going all ARM based, that's pretty interesting. But so hopefully you listened to this week's episode with Miko, the creator of Powerful Seal. He is going to be with us live next week and it's already scheduled, so we already know the times. So it's going to be at 1:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 CET. So join us. He's going to do a demo. At least I think that's what he's going to do. Miko, if you're watching, you're doing a demo. So that'll be Miko. Now, next Wednesday's release, I've already mentioned it before, Adam Sandor is on with us again. There was some good fighting that happened. I took a nap while it was being recorded. That always happens when Adam's around. But he is coming on live next Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. CET. So you get Adam's podcast on Wednesday, slightly edited, and then you're going to get completely unfiltered Adam next Thursday. You need to be here for that. Be ready for questions. And we already know what we're talking about. It's going to be a continuation of what we talk about on the podcast. So Adam's on Thursday.
Because I already forgot what we spoke about.
It's fine. I wrote it down. Otherwise, I would have forgotten it too. So Adam's on Thursday. Miko is on Friday. If you're in the U.S., next Friday is a holiday for lots of people, just for observing July 4th. I'm not going to make any other political statements around that because it's getting stranger by the day. Because it's called Independence Day, in case you're not aware what July 4th is to the U.S. If you haven't taken the survey, again, I'm going to throw that out there. If you have taken the survey, oh, by the way, you need to write this down. Do you have your pen? I'm talking to you, Victor.
Me? Pen?
Yes.
No.
Grab your pen. Type something.
I haven't had a pen in years. I don't know.
Okay.
Can I notepad?
Notepad's fine. Notepad's fine.
Okay then.
If you haven't taken the survey yet, please go take the survey. Victor is going to try to figure out, because I don't think I have that total control over the form, to see if we can show what the results are. See if we can make that publicly accessible.
You just made things complicated, because if I was not wasting time trying to find
you could have just done it.
You've done it exactly.
Okay, sorry, but that's your job. And then finally, if you're not part of the Slack workspace, go ahead and go sign up. Here's a link for it: devopsparadox.com/Slack. You can go sign up. If you haven't listened to the episode this week yet, please go listen to the episode, especially hint towards the end. Hint to see if you might win something free. Hint.
Are we giving something for free?
Yes. But you have to listen to the episode with Miko. That's episode 61. Listen towards the end and pay attention. And do what it says. And Slack is involved in that too. So if you've been waiting to sign up for Slack and you want to get the free thing that's at the end of episode 61, you have to join Slack and follow the instructions that are at the end of the episode. If you don't understand the episode, it's also in the transcript. That's at the bottom of the episode at devopsparadox.com/61. Is that it?
I changed something. I don't know whether you will see the summary. Maybe you will.
Yeah, and I can't. I'll look at it afterwards. But anyway, all the links we talked about today will be down. Most all the links. I won't grab the Mesh link in there. But anyway, most of the links will be down in the description in about 10 minutes once I go reset back up in my office. You've got a meeting to be at in 10 minutes, so I'm going to let you go early so you have time to do your thing.
Okay.
Any other final questions? We're running on about a 5 to 10 second delay today. We're running at ultra high width, high bandwidth, ultra low latency. That's what it's called. So we don't have to wait too long, but I will wait for about 15 seconds and see if there's any other questions that come in. Yeah, count it off for me. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You should be listening. And 3, 2, 1. Okay, that's it. All right. So next week, Wednesday, listen to the episode that's coming out with Adam. That comes out at 6 a.m. Eastern on Wednesdays. If you're not sure about that, or you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. If you go out to DevOpsParadox.com, you can sign up for an email notification as well. Those usually come out 4 or 5 hours after the episode releases, just in case I screw up something. At least I have a buffer to fix it before the email goes out. And then join us on Thursday with a live stream with Adam, and on Friday for a live stream with Miko. Is that it? You got any final words today for you?
It's all good.
Everybody have a great weekend. Nice, quiet weekend. Hopefully, unless you're down under, it's still summertime, so it's not winter, so it's summertime. That's it, right?
That's it.
Let's call it a day. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you again next Thursday and Friday.